Good evening, Professor. Today I'm going to present our presentation, the group case we assigned uh, between Thomas and Walmart Canada in 2006. Me and my 5 group members will present this. Well, moving further to the introduction of the case, in this case we see Thomas, the person who was sued, and taking the legal action against Walmart Canada, the defendant. The lawsuit focuses on allegations of wrongful dismissal was injustice, and she was not given adequate notice for severance. Key points to highlight. This is a civil litigation case where Thomas seeks compensation for damage incurred due to what she claims or unfair termination. If we talk about brief overview, Thomas was employed by Walmart and the primary issue centers around her termination. The case questioned whether Walmart has just cause to dismiss Thomas and whether the dismissal was carried out in a lawful manner, particularly in a relation to compensation offered to Thomas. Emphasize here that the importance of employment contracts, just cause for dismissal, and the employer's obligation to provide reasonable notice and compensation. Well, procedural history is Thomas filed her claim and the case was heard by the Saskatchewan Court of Queen's Bench in 2006. This court is a superior trial court in Saskatchewan and handles civil cases such as wrongful termination claims as this case. So the case ruling would be based on existing employment laws, the employment contract between Thomas and Walmart, whether the company adhered the legal obligation regarding termination. The decision in this case could set a precedent for how wrongful termination claims are handled in similar situations. Thank you so much. The next member will continue with the next slide.
Hi, good evening, Professor. Here I am going to talk about issues, primary issues. The central issue at the heart of this case is whether Walmart Canada wrongfully Mr. Thomas, specially the court has determined if the termination was carried out without reasonable notice or just cause. This question is fundamental in employment law because it dedicates whether the dismissal was legally justified. The court role was the assess if the Walmart has proved legal reason of dismissing Thompson if the company has failed in these obligations. And the next one is a secondary issue. A relatable issue is whether Walmart Thompson was entirely to servants pay following his dismissal under Canadian employment law, and an employee who is terminated without just cause is often entitled to servants or reasonable notice. The dispute here revolving around whether Walmart made it by uh, compensating Thomas if they had failed to provide what he was entitled to under the law. The next one is a damage resulting from dismissal. Another important point to address whether Mr. Thomas was entitled to additional damages due to the manner of his dismissal. This could include for financial losses, emotional or harm to his professional as a result of being dismissed without proper legal ground. The court has to consider if the Walmart action warranted extra compensation beyond just servants or notice. This issue for the crux was the legal dispute with the court needed to balance Walmart reasonable for termination against the protection provided to employee under Canadian employment law. Thank you, sir.
सारे नंबर तय दुआ होगी भाई मामला.
Hi Professor, good evening. In this video I am talking about holding. In this case, the court decision was in favor of the plaintiff, Mrs. Thomas. The Saskatchewan court ruled that her dismissal by Walmart was wrongful because it did not meet the legal threshold for just case. Essentially, the court found that the reason provided by Walmart for terminating Mrs. Thomas did not justify immediate dismissal without notice or severance. A key point of highlight in employment law, for an employer to claim just cause for dismissal, three needs to be significant misconduct by the employee that damages the employer-employee relationship beyond repair. In this case, the court ruled that Walmart did not prove this level of misconduct, and as a result of ruling, Mrs. Thomas was awarded compensation, which includes severance pay. That's it.
Good evening, sir. Today I am talking about the rational. In the discussing the court rationally, it's important to highlight the following key point. Walmart termination reasoning. Walmart argued that it had sufficient ground for terminating Mr. Thomas. However, the court found that the reasons provided were not strong enough to be considered just cause under employment law. The court emphasizes that the burden of proof for the cause lies with the employees and Walmart fails to meet that burden in the instance. And the second one is ruling in favor of Thomas. Due to the lack of just cause, the ruled in favor of Mr. Thomas, determining that Walmart was obligated to provide reasonable notice or surveillance. That ruling reinforces the principle that employers cannot dismiss employees without following the proper legal protocols unless there is a substantial and justifiable reason. By outlining these points, this court reasoning underscores the importance of employer obligations and the protection of employees' right in termination cases. Thank you, sir. Have a good day. ਲਾਈਏ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਯਾਰ
Hello everyone, my name is Yuvraj. Uh, Today I am start the Q&A section. My first question is, what is considered just cause for dismissal? One question is, what qualifies as just cause for dismissals? Just cause refers to serious misconduct by the employee that is so served it justifies immediate termination without notice or severance. The example of just cause include theft, fraud, or action that severely harm the employer's business. In this case, the court found that Walmart reasons for terminating Thomas did not meet this standard. The second question is, how did the court determine the compensation for the Thomas? Thomas compensation would be like the court looked at several factors: the length of her employment with Walmart, the roles she held, and the specific circumstances surrounding her termination. Based on these factors, the court decided that Thomas was entitled to severance pay and additional damage for the wrongful dismissal. The third question is, what are the implications of this cause for employers? The final important question, what does this case means for employers? The implications are significant. This case reinforces the employers must strictly follow the legal procedures when dismissing an employee. If there isn't just cause, employers are required to provide reasonable notice or severance. Otherwise, there is facing wrongful dismissal claims as seen in the case. This includes the Q&A section. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to ask any additional questions. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Professor. My name is Sakshi Gandhi, and here I am to wrap up, like it will be the conclusion. So, to wrap up, let's summarize the key points of Thomas v. Walmart Incorporation. This case serves as a landmark example of wrongful dismissal under Canadian employment law. The court's ruling in favor of Thomas emphasizes the strict requirements employers face when terminating employees. Specifically, employers must either provide just cause for dismissal or offer reasonable notice or severance pay. In this case, Walmart's failure to meet this legal obligation resulted in the court awarding compensation to Thomas for her wrongful dismissal. The case reinforces the legal protections available to employees and serves as a reminder to employers of the importance of following proper legal procedures. Moving forward, the principles established by this case will continue to influence how employment disputes are resolved in Canada, promoting fairness and accountability in the workplace. Thank you for your attention, and this concludes our presentation. Thank you.